Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the top 3 signs of an incompatible relationship. And I really wanted to highlight what I believe compatibility to be, because I think we have all of these ideas about compatibility in terms of like your MBTI type, or in terms of like your attachment style with another attachment style, or in terms of your likes or dislikes or interests or disinterests. And I really wanted to like discuss this idea of compatibility, and then things that I think are huge warning signs of not being compatible, and what is required to move the needle to create more compatibility. And when it's time to just set boundaries and maybe even call it a day, and distance yourself from a relationship that may not be working. And by distance, I mean like end the relationship if it's not working. I don't mean like just stonewall the person and ice them out. So first and foremost, I want to share that sometimes we think of compatibility as being like similarity, and this is not the case. In fact, I would say during the entire course of my practice for the better part of a decade, and then through working with so many students inside the personal development school, hearing so many wonderful comments, and getting so many emails from different people into our customer service inbox, and reading through some of them that are forwarded to me, like just so many different experiences, live workshops, all these different things. I would say that more often than not, the couples I saw lasting the longest often didn't have the most in common, often didn't have the most similarities, and weren't the most alike. And I'm not sitting here saying that that doesn't work, but I would just say that sometimes that's a common misconception, thinking that, oh, you have to have everything aligned, everything the same in order for a relationship to be compatible. And what I really believe compatibility to be, and then I'll take you through what top 3 things to look for that may tell you you're not compatible, is that you are willing to acknowledge each other's differences, make space for them in the relationship, and validate each other, and make compromises to like go into each other's worlds. And you'll often hear like opposites attract. And in many ways, I feel like 2 people coming together sort of make a whole. And that sometimes when people have these sort of polarized differences, it can help stay and maintain interdependence, meaning each person has a relationship to themselves and a strong established sense of self, that can be separate from their partner, but they really bridge that gap, and they show unconditional or as much unconditional love and support and care for their partner and the differences they have from their partner, as possible, and really like make space for each other's needs, values, morals, all these different things. So, to really speak to that, like what I believe creates incompatibility is when you have differences and then you're not doing the work to bridge the gap. You're not doing the work to say, hey, it's cool that you have this hobby and it's different from my hobby. I'll sometimes come spend time with you doing your hobby, and sometimes I'll do my own hobby and do my own thing, and vice versa. And so, what I think is really the problem is not how many similarities or differences you have that create compatibility or incompatibility, but instead, how much space you're willing to make for each other's needs, interests, beliefs, cares, opinions, ideas, and create healthy compromises, and allow both of those things to exist. So what I think really boils down to incompatibility is, number one, that you have differences that you're not willing to work on, that you're not able to accept. And if we really break this number one down, to be quite honest, it's almost like a little bit of that narcissism part that all human beings have to a small degree. But of course, as we go further along the continuum, it can become quite problematic, right? Where sometimes you can be self-oriented, self-interested. And in fact, a healthy amount of selfishness is important so that you can consider yourself and your needs equal to others. But when you're thinking that your partner should be the character in your story, and when they have differences from you, it's like not okay. And you need them to be interested in the same things as you are all the time, or do what you expect them to do at all times. Now we actually get into like narcissistic tendencies, like not just like this egoic part of self that's necessary for established interdependence, but some things that can start moving along down like the narcissism spectrum. And when we see this, this is actually what creates incompatibility, that you judge your partner's differences because they're not the same as yours. And that creates a problem within you. And you're not willing to accept those things, hold space for those things. And actually, research demonstrates that it makes it very difficult to move beyond the power struggle stage of relationships when we're not willing to accept and value and care for our partner's differences. And so we can get stuck there, and that can ultimately lead to the demise of a relationship, which makes things actually incompatible. So that's number one. Number two, one or both of you are not willing to do the work in the relationship. This is such an important part. So let's say you have these differences, and let's say just one person's willing to work on those differences. One person's willing to accept those differences. If somebody is not going to meet the other person part way, this is where we have these problematic situations. And so it's so important that when we have pain points in relationships or differences, that we can validate somebody else's difference of opinion, validate somebody's emotions, their perspective, their experience. Validating somebody's emotions does not mean that you have to validate their behavior. So somebody can get angry and yell, and I can go, hey, like, I see your pain. I see that you're hurt. I see that you're upset, and I can appreciate that. And I care about that. But also, it's not acceptable for you to raise your voice when you're trying to communicate. Come talk to me. Come tell me what you're feeling. I'll hear you out, but don't talk to me that way. And come circle back when you're ready to have a civilized conversation, right? So we can have this approach where we hear somebody out and we care about their feelings, we care about their perspective, but we don't have to make unhealthy behaviors okay, right? You're allowed to validate somebody's emotions and opinions or feelings, but still have your boundaries as a human that are self-respecting as well. And it's so funny because I think the mind naturally polarizes these things and thinks like, this is where we get into like right versus wrong. So much of why we're arguing about right versus wrong is because we feel hurt that somebody's not seeing us, that we're in a relationship with. And so we try so hard to shove down each other's throats, right? I'm right, you're not right. Because what we're actually trying for at a subconscious level, the vast majority of the time, in my opinion, is we're just trying, if somebody thinks I'm right, then they see me, they see my opinion, they get where I'm coming from. So much of the time we think we're arguing about right and wrong. We're arguing to get seen, heard, understood, like to get our emotions and perspectives validated by our loved ones. But we can do that and still say, and the behavior is not okay. So we have to see that both parties are willing to do the work. And if it's just one person doing that, one person making space for the other person's needs, feelings, beliefs, behaviors, perspectives, and the other person not, that is incompatible because it's not fair. And it's ultimately going to create these imbalanced relationships for the person who feels like their side is repressed, their feelings, their needs, all that kind of stuff is repressed and unheard, while they're doing all this extending of trying to see where the other person's coming from. Even if you're a saint, eventually it creates resentment in some form, right? Eventually it creates some kind of like, hey, like this isn't, you might be able to have healthy compassion for that person and get them and understand them, but you're not getting your needs met in a relationship, which for healthy interdependency, there is an exchange of needs that happens, right? Like we support each other, we care for each other, and that creates this compatibility. So I want to tell you number 3, but before I do, really quick, if you are struggling in a relationship and you're having a hard time like breaking through communication and dialogue, or you're finding that the needle's not moving when things are on the rocks, and you want really supportive tools for moving through rocky times in your romantic relationships or really any relationships, I have a course that you can check out for free for 7 days called How to Repair Any Relationship. And it talks about like the stages of closeness, and when repairing a relationship can also mean finding your footing with your boundaries and having just established boundaries that work for that relationship dynamic, but also how to, in our romantic partnerships, really like talk through stuff and validate each other and help each other de-escalate and understand the core wounds that you guys are triggering in each other and work through them. And it really helps break everything down in really simplistic terms. So if you're struggling or you're in a period of being on the rocks, you have the tools to effectively move through that period. And also the tools to gain clarity for like, if this is a relationship that you should be working on, or if it's a relationship that the best version of that relationship is going to be more from a distance, right? If somebody's really unhealthy or somebody's not meeting you partway. So anyways, that link is down below if you want to check it out. And then the last thing, and this is such an important part of compatibility, is whether or not you're resolving problems together as a unit. And what I find is that oftentimes when we're not resolving problems, to me, that is incompatibility, because your differences are hurting the relationship, right? Differences can strengthen a relationship, or differences can make a relationship suffer. If they're strengthening a relationship, it's because we're learning from the differences of somebody else. We're gaining valuable learning, insight, input from different perspectives, different feelings, different opinions, different ideas, different hobbies, and we get to grow together through that. But if we're not doing that in a healthy way, then instead differences are problematic. They create resentment, they create frustration, they create a lack. If our communication isn't strong, then it creates breakdowns in the relationship. So differences can be really healthy for a relationship, really positive, really drive it forward, or they can be something that weigh on a relationship depending on how much we're communicating, how much we're making space for that with one another. And so much of that means, are we resolving our pain points? Are we resolving our challenges? Are we able to talk through things and feel like, hey, I'm resolved now. You heard me, you understand where I'm coming from. We have a strategy to not enter into this painful argument again. And I heard you and I get where you're coming from. And I made a strategy to support you in not getting hurt. And we're working on this together as a unit, as a team. Great. I feel good. I feel like you see me, you hear me, you understand me. I feel like my vulnerability served. I feel like you actually understand me a lot better now, and vice versa. And that's what we're really looking for in these types of relationship dynamics. So when we can give this to each other, differences can be really good, healthy, beautiful, and a beautiful opportunity, a powerful opportunity for growth. But the big three pieces of compatibility is like, are you both doing the work? Are you making space to validate each other's differences and enjoy them and appreciate them and talk through them? And are you actually communicating through pain points in relationships? And if you're struggling with one of those three things, that's going to be where there's an incompatibility problem, not what your personalities are or what your attachment styles are. To me, it's those three things that really make a difference. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Again, you can check out that course for free if you're struggling or on the rocks at all and want some extra support and clear tools for what to do and what steps to take. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.